Hey yo, B-Team members, what's up? This is your friend Oddah coming at you guys live, trying to make some sense of everything for you. A couple things we want to go over real quick on this beautiful May morning. Well, at least it's beautiful where I'm at. Can't say the same for you. You might be having rain, sleet, snow, tornadoes, earthquakes. So I don't want to, rationalize it all. But at the same time, I'm having a great morning. So before I have to go to work, I figured I was gonna cut in and give you guys a little bit of an update and kind of explain some things, better practices for all of you free to play and light spending characters such as myself. So anybody that is basically not a whale, and by game standards, Blizzard considers anybody under 6K not a whale. I don't care what the whale server says or what any whale on any server says. They'll say it's like 7K or 8K. It's to Blizzard a whale. If you can put gems in your wings, you're a whale. You know what I'm saying? So there's that notion. So let's get into some of the more important factors that are going on as they are fixing to roll out the Warlock next month. We're going to be getting probably anywhere from two, maybe five at max updates coming in between now and then. I've tried to mention these particular updates in the Discord channel to you guys like multiple times. Hey, keep an eye on this. Keep an eye on this. Well, it's coming. There's going to rumor has it that there's going to be a gem rework. So if you've got some S tier gems, whether they're 1 star, 2 star, or 5 star, don't crunch them. And this is for S tier gems only, like Pain Class, Mother's Lament, Viper's Bite. Those are considered S tier gems, and the same thing goes with 5 star gems. Like hold on to your 5 star gems, even if you have clones, even if you have junked ones. Something's fixing to happen within the next few patches, and the rumor is and this is coming directly from development. They've been working on boosting the maximum amount of resonance to 15K. So for the whales, they're going to get whalier. For the free to play players, you guys are going to have more gem slot options. I was talking to Elu this morning, and it's either going to be a charm, or the rumor has it that the pets are going to get gem slots put on them, and that's what's going to be used to basically boost your resonance up. And I'm not sure what it's going to do for the pets, to be honest. It may give them the special ability gem procs, or it may tie into you. It's really hard telling with Blizzard, but at least that would be kind of a cooler idea than another gear spot. There hasn't been any news on gear upgrades, so like green gear's stuck at 25. I would imagine at some point they're gonna boost it to 30 to match the legendary gear, your oranges. But right now it's all hearsay. If you look right now, and this is a thing I want to point out, if you go here, and this is kind of what's got me worried. There's no I-11. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't tell you that you got to cross this boss off your list to you know get anything from him other than just drops. Like there's no I-13. Sorry. So not I-11. There's no I-13. It stops at I-12. And this leads me to believe that there's the possibility of them doing an Inferno crunch again, where they start us back at like Inferno 4, and they just redo the numbers basically. So like where we're at is going to basically be like Inferno 4, and Inferno 13 would be Inferno 5, Inferno 14 would be Inferno 6, so on and so forth. They did this before twice already, so I wouldn't be shocked. The other thing was like the Paragon crunch. happened like at, I believe it was at 1600 the last time, or 1500. We had a Paragon crunch where they took our Paragon levels and they crunched them down, and it does make the system, because it's less numbers, you know what I'm saying? So it does make the system optimize things a little bit better, on their end. So for me, and I can tell you, like, the game has been utterly laggy since the last big patches. So that tells me that they're really doing something in the background, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, we want that. So as to not, I want to go over here so I'm out of eyesight of any players that might randomly invite you. Hey, Reader. Hey, Stuart. Um, so when we talk about the things for you guys that are going between 1K res, 2K res, 2K res to 3K res, the game changes like phenomenally. And there are a lot of you players out there that are sub 2K right now in the clan, and then there are some of you players that are sub 3K, sub 4K, sub 5K. You know what I'm saying? And you might feel like you're not contributing much, but the reality is that you do, um, and you don't realize that you do. Like, when you get an assist kill, I mean, you did damage to that person. You were there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you threw a buff on somebody that helped kill that person. So you get credit for it. And to me, if you're playing like a support class, like a support build for a class, like I play support Crusader a lot in PvP, because I don't, like, I'm not always, geared up to be the star of the show, especially like, when you're fighting like 8Ks and 9Ks and such like that. Like, you got to play smart and to your strengths. And, like, I've always been a team player when it comes to like giving out buffs. So that's kind of how I play PvP. Now, I do have aggressive builds. Like, if I know, like, we're going up against D Team or, Obsidian Circle or, Fellowship or something like that, then I know, yeah, I can play a little bit more aggressive because I'm going to die a whole lot less. But I still keep that core foundation of at least having one or two group buffs in my rotation so I can help my party. So, like, I'm mindful of that. It's not just like Oddah goes out and just like throws CC everywhere. I mean, I can do builds like that, but they're just not fun for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you look at your KDR, your kill death ratio, and you try to make it like 1-for-1 or 2-for-1. 2-for-1, at least you're feeling like you're accomplishing something at that point. And some of you guys have like a 3-to-1 or even a 10-to-1 KDR. Well, when you're playing a support, KDR doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not amount of the kills, it's the amount of assists, because you were in the pocket the entire time. So, like, you can't, like, when I go in and I judge like how well I did in a battleground, honestly, it's never like about my personal KDR. It's about my assist rate at that point. How long was I able to stay alive versus how many players I helped kill, how many banners I threw out, how many bubbles I threw out. You see what I'm saying? And those things matter when you're playing support more than kill death. I mean, you have AD and KD, assist and death, and then kill and death. And assist and death is for support classes. And if your assist rate is high, and I mean, yeah, some of your killers out there, especially like, for example, like if me and Pink go out into a battleground, or we do Shadow War together, you see what I'm saying, and she's in my group, naturally her kill death and assist is going to be way higher than mine, because I'm tossing my banner out. Even though she's got hers up, mine takes precedence because it's got a modifier. It's got an extra damage buff, so the bigger banner always takes, the bigger ability always takes precedence. And that matters if you have a charm, by the way. So, my 6% banner doesn't stack, it overrides hers. and my banner, provides all of the damage. Her banner provides the speed, you know what I'm saying? But overall, my damage modifier will stack above hers. So it's like you get both banners. You see what I'm saying? But you get more damage with mine, which is great for her too. So but anytime she bubbles me, I bubble her. And I get a kill, she's gonna get an assist. If she gets a kill, I'm gonna get an assist, and it's gonna level out. So you have to look at it from that perspective. And the hardest part about even being a new player, or being a 1 or 2 year veteran in this game, is like you still have this cockiness to you that like you don't have an understanding of the mathematics quite yet. You grasp that the players with the big wings kill you, but you're not looking at the math the right way quite yet. And that's what we're here to do. We're going to explain everything so that when the time comes for you to start min maxing your character, and some of you are right there right now, especially some of you 2Ks that are heading into the 3K, and some of you 5Ks that are already maximized, getting ready to potentially finalize your builds at 6K, and that's going to be your whale build from 6K to 15K. Do you see what I'm saying? You might change a few things, or if a new meta build comes out, you might change to that. But for the most part, typically, veteran whales don't change much because they don't have to. They're comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And that's where like the evolution of these builds comes out. And each build has a plateau, and a min max, where it'll stack out and then it'll plateau. And then there's like some builds that are just not meant for certain things. And again, like you have to realize, like, unless you're playing like a necro or a demon hunter, like one build really doesn't work for all of the classes, overall. Like I can tell you, like, I use one build for PvE and two different builds for PvP, sometimes three. I've gotten comfortable with my PvE build, and I have really put a lot of time and effort into it. It's not a max DPS build, but when other people are in my party, they DPS like hell. So it's a great support and DPS build. If I'm like the big guy in the totem pole, I mean, naturally I'm going to be like high DPS. If I'm the 3K and in a dungeon or a raid and surrounded by a bunch of 1Ks or 2Ks, unless again, like I said, it's a demon hunter or a necro, or even a mage wizard, because like those three classes are like balls to the wall damage, compared to a crusader's maximum output, with the same stats. So, and any satyr will tell you the same thing. Like, our damage sucks sometimes when it's single target. We really do good with AoE damage. Like, if there's a boss and a group of mobs, like, we're gonna be like fighting with everybody at the top of the DPS charts. But if it's just a boss with no mobs, man, we're getting we're in the middle of the pack going, okay, cool, well, here's a banner. So that's you got to play to those strengths, and know your character's weaknesses and limitations, and that's for you to figure out, because I can't tell you like my play styles work for everybody, because they don't. You know what I'm saying? Like Smite, when he plays a Crusader, he has a completely different play style. Pink has a different play style. Ada and Oran, they have a different play style. They've tried my builds and they kind of like them, or they'll take them and they'll make them their own. You know what I'm saying? They'll take what they like about mine and change a few things to make it work for them. So, and that's the best thing about this game. Like, nobody can really tell you how to really play it. They can only be suggestive if you're, griping about your damage not being that high. And, if you don't listen, you don't listen. You'll never figure it out. And a lot of that is just like swallowing your pride and actually looking at some of the meta builds and some of these other builds, or coming up with something yourself because, you figured something out. And it's going to click for everybody at some point, whether it's year one or year two, or sometimes like halfway through year two, onto year three, it'll click with you and you'll have a complete understanding of your class. The downside is for those of you that change classes, like, socks, you're not learning anything. You know what I'm saying? Other than how to play a different class and collect different essences. And although the around the world is really cool to do, and I do it on my alt character, it really does maim the clan when you change classes to a class that you have no essences for during cycle of strife events. So you have to pick and choose. You see what I'm saying? Like, you got to do it for a little bit and then go back to your old class and then do it back again and go back to your old class until you can get PvP essences for your new class. And again, I'm not telling you all how to play. I'm just saying this is what I observe from other people and hear from like 420 and Shaw and a few others that are doing around the world, that like if you don't have the essences, that's the hardest part for PvP. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're a battleground junkie and you know what I'm saying, you all of a sudden one day you want to play a Blood Knight and you don't have any of the Blood Knight PvP essences, man, it's going to be really rough. Because those a lot of those builds are exact. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't work unless you have literally everything. So you got to be selective when you do class changes. But moving forward, we're gonna get into some of the stuff that's important. Now, when you pull up a character sheet, this is like really cool stuff like that. You're gonna want to pull up the more attributes bar. Right here, when you click that, that's going to put this up, and it's going to show like your armor pin, your potency, and so on and so forth. Now, why these are important is you get these stats are boosted by your secondary gems. So whatever you have, like, and it'll tell you like, it's going to give you the breakdown of like your armor, compare against any armor penetration. Your armor is 776 higher than expected for your level in your current activity difficulty, increasing your damage reduction from blocking by 16% from a base reduction of 50%. So if I'm reading the base reduction plus the modifier, that's 66% damage reduction total overall. So and in order for that to work really well, you really honestly need to get your block chance up. Like my block chance is disgustingly low, and it is a secondary stat that I need to work on for my PvP builds. But the problem is that I need to start collecting secondary gear for my PvP builds, so that way I can. It's a shit show. But when you have two different builds, you have several different pieces of gear that you're going to have to enchant differently, and I have not enchanted for block chance yet. So that's why it's miserably low. Block rating, you want to try to get it comfortably as high as possible. I believe that 55 to 65% is soft cap, and hard cap is like 85%. So like you're gonna get, this part is gonna get nerfed once you get your block rating up high enough. So that's the soft cap. So like I think it's 65%. I'd have to look at Diablo.tv. So armor, your main two stats and why they're up front, and I know this is in alphabetical order, but these are actually kind of almost in line of level importance depending on what you're playing. So if you're playing damage, you want armor pin, but you also want armor. You see what I'm saying? So they need to be kind of close to each other. Then you have potency versus resistance. So your potency affects the duration of all your harmful effects, and reducing durations. So basically your potency it's basically your stuns and your dots, your damage over time, your knockups, your knockbacks are all affected by potency versus resistance. If your potency is higher than their resistance, then the duration gets raised, or it goes all the way through. And this includes spell effects too from your legendary gems as well. So resistance affects those as well. And the resistance Also, it's like magic effects and anything that has to do with CC and DOTs. Chill effects, um, freeze effects, how long you stay in them, all of that is potency versus resistance. Potency is how long if you beat their resistance, you could get them to freeze, for the max time. If their resistance beats their potency, then they're going to break out. And the knock-up effect, and how that works is that, like, there's an elevation in the game if you haven't noticed. So, like, especially barbarians, when you guys do like your throws and your knockups and stuff like that, and necromancers as well, crusaders, pretty much any class that's got a knockup, druids. When you guys knock them in the air, the potency versus resistance defines how far you knock them up in the air. So, like, lower resistance players are going to go clean up, and it's going to take them a second to come back down. You know what I'm saying? Where and even like maybe possibly be stunned for a split second. Because some of the knockups have like a stunning after effect, and that is also affected by resistance. Well, where if you hit a whale, you just kind of barely lift them off the ground, and it's like, oh well, shit. And even some gems like Colossus Engine prevent knockups from happening. So and you can override that gem effect if your potency is high enough. So that's because it's a defensive effect. The same thing with like Conjuration of Light. Conjuration of Light makes you immune to all damage. Well, if your resistance is low, your bubble pops early. You know what I'm saying? Then there goes your Conjure of Light, and all of a sudden you're just soaking damage from everybody. Because it's not just one player, it's all players. You see what I'm saying? It only takes one of them to bust your bubble, bust your shield, and then you're soaking damage. So you have to, really work on resistance, over potency, unless you're playing a dot class like a necromancer, a fire or ice demon hunter, shock crusaders, stuff like that. So these are important things to know. The rest of your additional, attributes like your accuracy rating, compared against enemy evasion rating, increase your chance to hit the enemy. That's kind of a PvP ability as well. Evasion and accuracy, that's like an extra dodge basically. Crit chance, crit resistance, critical damage percent, crit hit damage, sorry, attack speed, cooldown reductions, movement speed, block chance, drain, or life drain, cheat death, life regen, which you barely see on equipment anymore. Damage increase, defense increase, magic find, and resonance. Now, to go over a couple of these things that you really, 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 really need to pay attention to is that when you're standing there like I am now, your stuff doesn't change. You see what I'm saying? Now, if I don't know if I can click these. Okay, hold on one second. Now, if I click, you can hear my cat in the background. If I click my horse and then I go over here and I check it again, you'll notice that my movement speed has gone up to 70%, which is max. You can stack some abilities over and it'll go over it. It won't numerically show you. Like, I know, like, the speed banner gives you, like, another 8% boost to speed or whatever it is. That stacks. Sprint, I think, stacks as well with movement speed. There's a Conjuration of Light for Crusaders, a piece of gear that you can find craft, and that increases your movement speed 8% each piece. That stacks with this too. So you can go above 70%, but 70% is what it lists. I don't know what the actual the invisible hard cap is for movement speed. I'd have to ask around, because I don't even think Diablo TV listed it. It listed at like 70%. It might have it at 85. But I believe like the higher you can get it, the most you can get is that. And you'll notice like your damage goes up. So whenever you pop your abilities, yeah, this is going to change. So you need to pay attention to that while the ability, you have to have the ability up, and you got to go into your character sheet and do it while it's active. And then, so other abilities like this one increases your damage. So these are your main abilities. Intelligence doesn't do nothing for Crusaders. Fortitude increases armor and armor pin. Vitality is always going to be life, and willpower's potency and resistance. So most people who are looking for armor pin are going to want to stack fortitude. And Lumi and me were having this discussion the other day, prior, or not, I'm sorry, not the other day, but about 2 months ago, prior to the new changes to the secondaries, the removal of PvP hard caps in Cycle of Strife and other PvP events. So, and that's all. That's a chestnut. So right now, everything that Lumi says about fortitude is 1,000% correct. So you want to try to find as much gear with as much fortitude on it as possible. I know, like, I got to replace that belt and try to find a fort belt. Because that's what's going to increase. These gems increase that stat by however much percent that they say total. So, you know, base is 63%. So 63% of 100 is another 63. See what I'm saying? Every 100 is an extra 63. You just got to think of it that way. And so that's how you would, your armor pin and stuff like that increases. The same thing with your vitality, your willpower, so on and so forth. Whatever stats are on that green, these secondaries increase them by a percentage. And prior to this, that you really, like, the debate was like, going up to hard cap, because going over hard cap for PvP. The old hard cap was like 5,500. There isn't one now because armor was uncorked or uncapped like a year ago. So you could stack armor and negate armor pin, and now you can't do that no more. You can only, so you've got to balance your armor versus armor pin. If you feel comfortable with getting hit, you can escape really well. You've got, cheat death at a good percentage alongside your, a savior pet. That goes a long way. That's like, 2 deaths. You've got a phoenix ashes, or what have you. Those are all kind of like really important things to have, or to know, and because those do add up in PvP, So now, for those of you that are PvE based, yes, armor pin has a cap, and it's unknown. It's based off of whatever Blizzard wrote for that difficulty level. So, but the soft cap for PvE is 5,000. So when you hit 5,000 armor pin, you're soft capped to do PvE, which means that you're going, the other focus points need to be like life, like vitality, and more damage at that point. I'm saying, getting your DPS up, because your armor pin is going to do as much as it possibly can between 5,000 and 5,500. And yeah, you're going to see some like incremental increases, but they're not going to be as much, as it is in PvP. Like hitting a player with the same armor pin as you have armor, or armor that you have as armor pin, sorry. You can tell I'm like one taking all of this. So, these are just things that, we as players and veteran players look out for when we're min-maxing our builds. You want to get everything to 30 so you can unlock enchanting. Very important to have. You can't min-max without having to rank 30. And it also, I believe, the other thing you want to do is in your Seeker's Path, you want to get your Heliquary to level 70. Alright, that unlocks demonic reforging, and you can reforge the special attributes on your pieces of gear, to be completely different. So, like, for example, like, I don't want like block chance, damage reduction taken, primary attack damage. I can literally re-roll this, and like I like that it gives me more skill cooldowns, primary attack damage, and then decrease. So I can select. I'm definitely going to select this new attribute. It doesn't increase the combat rating, but it does re-roll your special attributes for each piece of gear. And anytime that I have like Benny duration, like beneficial duration or skill cooldown reduction, like I'm trying to, do that to get my horse, my Conj of Light, my banners cooldown a lot lower, so that way I can use it when I have it. It goes a long way, um, as a player. So, and for your PvP gear, you don't have to have um, uh, like beneficial duration as much as you need like damage movement speed. So you can, for me would be like block chance. I want to try to get my block chance as high as possible. So those are things that I've got to look out for personally. And your character is going to be different. Your build may even be different. I might be running a Crusader build, and where Pink's focusing on crit hit damage. I'm focusing on block chance because I don't want to get hit as many times. So you've got to give up something to get something. And so you should be enchanting your PvE build gear and enchanting your PvP build gear both differently. Like if you're playing a support build, yeah, you want Benny duration. If you're playing like a hybrid support damage build, you kind of want a little bit of both. And if you're playing a damage build, you might want crit hit damage and block, so that way you can stay in the pocket a lot longer. If you're a tank, you want bubbles and stuff like that. So that kind of puts this into perspective for you guys, for those of you min-maxing. So what I'm going to go over is gems. So I'm going to go over to Serral, and we're going to go to gem services, and we're going to go to craft, because this is going to, oh shit, I got some gems that I can make. This is going to unlock, Telerit class. So we can talk about all of the gems that we have available. And so you guys have an understanding, because light spenders and free-to-play players don't have the same gem options, honestly, as paid players. You see what I'm saying? Like your whales and your mid spenders will have tons of 5 stars. They might not have the ones they need, but they have some that are looming around just in case. Like they fix a gem, or they buff a gem, or they like what that gem does in a certain for a certain aspect or certain build or whatever. So they have a lot more options than most of us do. I was free to play for quite a while. I want to say like the first year of the game. I did buy battle passes because I wanted the costumes, so that technically eliminates me as a free to play player, but it puts me in the light spend category. And I honestly don't think I've put more than maybe $1,000 in this game, between battle passes, name changes, server transfers, cosmetics mostly. I've bought the Prodigy paths for Oddah. I've not spent anything on Ray, because the battle pass stuff, some of the stuff is shared. So Ray's kind of been the one that's been making out like a fat rat, while Oddah's technically the pay to win character. But in doing a lot of studies, you're going to find rankings of 5-star and 2-star gems, and they're going to be S tier, A tier, B, C, D, E, F. S is the top. You know what I'm saying? That's the elite gem. It's a best in slot gem, depending on your build. 9 out of 10 times it's going to work for every build. There are some that are non-negotiable, like they're 10 out of 10, times they will work with every build. So you have to kind of be selective. So, and some of them are great PvP gems, And but there are other S tier gems, like Phoenix Ashes is one of them that gets a lot of people up in arms because it has PvP aspects. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get a shield, you get jumped up, and you get another chance at life, and so it's good for like a barbarian or somebody that's like not one that's not minding getting up from the ground like 5 times in a row. But overall, you can do more damage with another gem in that gem's place. So it's never really recommended. Usually, like, I see Phoenix Ashes usually as like a C tier gem. Howlers is an F. Chip Stoneflesh is a B tier. It's kind of in between. It works okay for PvP, as long as you can beat their resistance, but it's beneficial is mostly for PvE, kind of, but there's other gems that can substitute it. It's a great gem to start with, but once you start replacing them with other gems, this is probably going to be one of the last gems you'll replace with another S tier. Seeping Bile is an S tier at later levels. It's an A tier from ranks 1 to 4. When you get it to rank 5, it becomes an S tier, and then it gets just better and better as it gets older. Blessing of the Worthy is a B tier. This is a non-negotiable. Blood-soaked Jade should be on everybody's build list. It's an S tier. Echoing Shade is a B tier. It's a PvE gem. Cool, yeah, you got clones. They only do your normal attack, and they don't do as much damage as you do. Sure, yeah, they can get in the way and fool a new player, but a veteran is going to look for your name tag and focus damage on you or AoE you down. So it's not the best gem. I have one somewhere in my inventory. It's like a rank 5, I think, and I don't use it. I might have actually ate it. Be honest, I'll have to look, but I don't think that I did, because I think I kept 3 gems. Echoing Shade is definitely a B tier gem. It is really good in PvP for tanking, because your clones will tank for you. So, but it's still a B tier gem because there's other damage gems that are much better than what that does. Bottled Hope is another non negotiable. It is an S tier gem. It works for every build, and once you get it ranked up, you don't have to rely on beneficial duration or skill chance, because this will give you, a pretty, chunky amount of skill, skill cooldown, max rank. F C for C tier for PvP. For PvE, it's a D tier. Concentrated Wheel is a B tier, A tier for some builds. Hellfire Fragment is a B tier gem. Gloom Cask is an S tier gem for those of you who like to speed attack. It goes as fast as you can. Starfire Shard is an S tier, so these two are both S tier gems. Spiteful Blood is a B tier, C tier PvE gem, and an A tier PvP gem. So this is one of the PvP gems that they kind of sort of got right, but again, there are other damage gems that you can replace it with. Void Spark. This is another one of those gems that you will replace a little later in life. You see what I'm saying? If you get it and you get it up, it's great. It's fantastic. The damage is phenomenal. It is literally an A plus tier gem. It's one of the very few. It's replaceable with another S tier, because there's tons of S tier gems, but it is one of the last gems you replace. It's like Chip Stoneflesh. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even at lower levels, it puts out good damage. You see what I'm saying? So at lower ranks, it's a good starter gem. You can rank it up to rank 10, but it plateaus at rank 10. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to be something you're going to replace. Maw of the Deep is a C tier PvE gem and an A or B tier PvP gem. It does have some CC to it. It's got a group CC, but again, it's another gem that you can put something else in its place much better. Rolling Consequence is another gem that is legitimately an S tier non negotiable. If you notice, most of your S tiers are going to be on the right hand side. Um, Roiling is important for every class. It's great burst damage. It's so it's useful. You see what I'm saying? Your crit hits on burning enemies are great, especially like for burn banners, or anybody that It's not just you. If you ignite, if somebody else ignites it, that gem gives you that damage. So, Hilt of Many Realms. Okay, this one is surprisingly good. Like, surprisingly good. So good. It's not an S tier gem. It is an A tier, in my honest opinion, for damage. It's burst damage. It procs a whole lot. It's like 4 Zwinsons for the price of 1. It's so good for burst damage. It is replaceable, but if you get it early on in game, you'll love it. It's useful. So, when we were talking about replacement gems for Void Spark, Storm Vault is an S tier gem. It is one that you can, sub in and out with another S tier gem depending on your build, but it is an S tier gem, and that is the replacement for Void Spark. It's much better than Void Spark, because it chases enemies down where Void Spark doesn't. And it also does lightning. So Storm Vault is definitely a really good gem for both PvE and PvP and PvE, sorry. So I would highly recommend that one put on your list. Wolfheart. This one, in the beginning, I wasn't too keen on it, and then they fixed it, and it's pretty good. It's great. It is an S tier for support classes. It is an S tier, A tier for damage classes. It works both in PvP and PvE quite well. The buff is really nice. You can stack it with Colossus Engine and Blood Flow, so it's a good buff gem. So, like, if you're running a buff build, where you're relying on your 5-star gem procs to buff your character up to increase your damage, it goes nicely with those particular gems and Mother's Lament. You see what I'm saying? Because that's also a buff gem. So I ate crow on this once they fixed it. A lot of people love it, and that's a good one. Golden Firmament is another one of those ones where it does pretty good for damage reduction and evasion rating. So it's a great defensive gem, but the downside to it is that I would only see one use for it in PvE fully upgraded as a secondary gem, and that would be for doing Gauntlet because of the damage reduction and the evasion rating. But for PvP, those are two stats for a defensive build that are pretty non-negotiable. Like, a person like Pink would benefit from this because of that. She's like, she's a low res build. If she could get one to like rank 4 or rank 5, like, she would be really hard to kill, and she could substitute out like Battle Guard or something like that for this gem. It's like I said, I consider it an S tier gem for PvE, or for PvP, and like an A to a B tier for PvP, PvE, sorry, depending on the damage build or the type of damage you're doing. Like, there are some, like, if you get shields, you got you get a damage buff. So, I can't say, well, that's not gonna work for you. Colossus Engine and Blood Flow. They're A tier because they provide substantial buffs, but the reason why they're A tier is that they don't work for wizards as well. They're mainly for melee classes. They work for necros quite well, but for wizards, like Colossus Engine does a little bit more for melee than Blood Flow does. Blood Flow does help out a little bit, but again, they're buff gems. They just don't work for wizards. I don't even know, like, I'll have to see what the main stats for warlocks are too, because they may not work for them. Hunt Coil is, to me, an S tier gem. The reason why is because if you go from your defensive stance, you get a 25 up to a 25% increase to damage. And I know this is like reading rank 1. I think it's a bit more than that. If you go to your offensives, you get 20% reduced damage. So that's like great for PvP and for PvE, especially like if you're clearing gauntlets, that are harder. You're getting hit real hard by a raid boss or gauntlet. You just switch to defensive stance, and you're taking 25% less damage. And then the blast is actually pretty decent too, and so pretty good stuff. Faded Trail and Leviathan Tomb. I feel like Faded Trail is more geared towards PvP. It's better than Spiteful Blood for PvP, so I would say it's like an A, maybe even an S tier for PvP. For PvE, the effects are kind of lackluster. I feel like it's not enough damage where you could substitute another gem in there or even a buff gem in there, and that would do better than this. Leviathan Tomb is basically a 5-star Pain Clasp. The damage output max ranked is much more than Pain Clasp. I would say it's like probably an S tier gem if you can get your hands on one. I'm hearing a lot of good things out of this gem. I didn't in the beginning, but there's just people who had it at low ranks saying, well, Pain Clasp is better. Yes, it is, but this one maxes out higher, and it stacks with Pain Clasp. So if you want to keep Pain Clasp in your inventory, you can. So now we're going to go into 2-star gems, and this is also important to know. S tier. Always will be an S tier gem. Hungerer is an A tier gem, B tier for PvP, maybe even C. Battle Guard is a C tier for PvE and a B tier for PvP, unless you're building a Thorns build or a Bite Back build. Then it's an A or an S tier. This is a C tier, B tier gem. This one is a D tier. This is an A tier. Unity Crystal, Bloody Reach is an A tier. This is a C or a D tier. Unity Crystal is also a weird gem. Nobody really uses it, so it's more of like a C tier. Cutthroat's Grin is a B tier gem. Abiding Curse is a C tier. Volatility Shard is an A tier. Cure Sling is a C tier. Pain Class is an S tier, non-negotiable. I still have mine. Mine's fully ranked out. I won't get rid of it. You can use it for PvE and for some PvP builds. Ironbane is a B tier. Mother's Lament is an S tier. It's another gem you need to keep. Viper's Bite is an S tier. It's another gem you need to keep. Igneous Scorn is an A tier. It's almost an S tier. It's good. Moss Thorn is surprisingly good. This is a Thorns gem. It's surprisingly good. It's a to an S tier for PvP and a B tier for PvE. Tear of the Comet is it's extra little burst damage. So like if you're doing like a burst damage build with like Zwinsons, Hilt of Many Realms, any of the gems that like explode and stuff like that, that's a nice little touch. So I would say it's like a B tier gem. Cold Confident is a C tier. Mercy's Harvest is a B tier. Spectre Glass is an A tier. Stubborn Oracle is an A tier, S tier gem for PvP because it's damage reduction. Fading Nostrum is if you've got continual damage effects, it's really good. It kind of works similar to Pain Class, but it's not always turned on. Rampant Torch is good if you're doing shielded stuff. Tundra Blight is okay. Crucible is now an S tier gem. I consider it an S tier gem because it does kick a lot of ass. And then we'll get into the 1 stars. So for you beginners that are like still in the 1K area, you've got 1-star gems. Pain Subjugation is basically a baby Pain Clasp. It's good. Berserker's Eye is also an S tier, so these are both considered S tier gems. Black Rose and Nightmare Wreath are both B and C tier. Respite Stone is a B tier. Carson's Invigoration is an A tier. Zodstone is an F tier. Everlasting Torment is an A tier. Defiant Soul is a C tier. Freedom and Devotion is a C tier. Chain Death is an A tier, S tier. Mocking Laughter is a C tier. Salid's Awakening is an A tier. Trickshot Gem is an A tier, S tier for channelers. Blessed Pebble is an S tier. Heartstone is a B tier, but an S tier for those of you who need shields. Lowe's Gaze is a C tier. Exigent Exo, unless you're doing charge effects. This one's kind of a B tier, unless you're doing block. It's an A tier, S tier. Eye of the Unyielding is continual damage, so it's kind of a good A tier, S tier gem. And then that one's more of a C tier, maybe D tier. Misery Elixir is A tier, S tier. Lucent Watcher is probably going to be PvP. So I'd give that like a B tier, maybe B minus, B plus, depending on how you want to go with the build. Increased skill damage and Tropic Well is really good because of the skill damage and the attack speed increase. It's an S tier. Havoc Bearer is, if you're Mr. Dashy, it's an S tier, but if you're not Mr. Dashy, it's not. Falter Grasp is a PvP gem, and it's a CC gem, not bad. But for PvE, it's like a C, so it's like an A tier for PvP and a C tier for PvE. Surging Sea is good because it stacks, so that's like an extra 8%, and then skill cooldown reduction, so I would say that that's probably an S tier. Resistance is nice, but again, not necessary for PvE as much as it is for PvP, so I'd say that's a C tier. Flaystone. This is great for shielded enemies, so if like you're doing like a low reso PvP gear, you want this. So for PvP, I would give this like an S tier, maybe an A tier at the bottom. But for everything else, not so much. PvE would be terrible. And then this one is just honestly, it's probably a C tier. So that is kind of breakdown of all of the gems in the game currently as of today, to kind of give you why we rank them, because like A tier gems can go in some builds, but there's an S tier gem that you're going to replace it with, and not all S tier gems are going to be the best gem for what you're doing. There are some that you're going to need for PvE, some for raids, some for PvP. So like you want 6 solid non-negotiable gems that never leave their spot, and 2 that you can kind of sort of sub out, and that's where I'm working at with Oddah. So like I'm gonna replace this gem with Starfire Shard, and this gem's gonna be Storm Vault, but everything else that I have in my inventory is useful for my build, regardless of whether it's PvE or PvP. If a new gem comes out, or say I want to get a Faded Trail or whatever, I can pop whatever one of these 2 S tiers out and replace it. You see what I'm saying, with a PvP S tier. So you've got to be fluid, and you've got to kind of adjust when you start getting your inventory built up to where you have the resonance and where you have all of the ability to kind of play with some things. And some of you guys are getting there, some of you guys are already there, way past me, and some of you guys are like right, near the transfer. And again, like I tell people, like there's enough good 1-star gems, 2-star gems, and 5-star gems to where you can unlock your resonance very easily, and you can get your wings and your life up, and then start playing around with them a little bit. And really, like, as long as you're doing all of your events that reward legendary crests, or you're buying, if you're a light spender, you're buying your packages during mirror gem events, or when a good package is on, deal comes up, you're always going to make out like a fat rat. And for those of you guys that are like lower builds and stuff like that, I can tell you, like, it seems like there's an RNG increase every 1,000 resonance for 5-star gems. I didn't get as many when I was at 2K, and even less when I was at 1K. Like I've never gotten a 5 out of 5 gem that I can recollect. I've always gotten like 4 out of 5s, 3 out of 5s, and 2 out of 5s, but never a 5 out of 5. So, these are all, really good items to kind of process and think about, as you're progressing from 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K. And, like I said, once you get your gems collected and your rank 4s and rank 5s, like that's all you do is you just work on those gems for the rest of the time until your wing gems open up, or they add new gem slots like they were talking about, we were talking about earlier. And that will make, getting, and saving up your gems, that's just going to make it so much easier for you, at the end of the day. I had to get a drink of water. I apologize. Like I said, we do everything in one take here. So, I'm trying to explain these things the best way that I possibly can for you guys, because I know, like, the math is confusing, and, like, this does that. But this is the basic breakdown, and everything else from there is just you working on it the way you want and how much luck you have. We all have, like, a wish list, even the lowliest player, the free-to-play players, like, hey, I wouldn't mind having, like, 1 or 2 5-star gems, So we all have a wish list, and we're working towards that. Some of us have to throw money at it, what I'm saying? Some of us get lucky, some of us don't get anything we want at all for a very long time, and that's just the nature of the game. But the reality of it all is that, if we can take the time to educate each other and let each other know when things change, we'll go from that. Now, a lot of people are asking me, like, where do I get my resources from? There's various websites out of there that are around. The gems haven't changed. Like, they haven't nerfed or buffed the gems in a very, very long time. So, I use an older resource, which is still valid, because, the last time, like, he hasn't written on this page in a while, because I think he quit playing, but Mr. Min Plays was a streamer for a while, and he's gone now. He quit the game, but he left all of his information up, and he's still got it on his website, mrminplays.com, and he breaks down all of the gems and how they work for each class, the functionality, if they have centricity or not with other gems. And he did a really good job. And again, because Blizzard doesn't do a lot of changes to these gems overall, it's still accurate. It just doesn't have the last 5 gems on it, I don't think, unless, like, I'm checking. Yeah, like his website stops at Void Spark. So he doesn't have the last few gems on there that we just got. So there's like 3 gems missing, but those newer gems are pretty tough. Like I've explained it from my opinion that, like they could be A tier or S tier, depending on the build. But he breaks it down by class and stuff like that, like how well they work for your class. If they're, you know, overall like what their maximum is, what you would want to do it for. And there's other resources like, Apollon Gaming is good. There's a few other YouTube streamers that still handle this game. So, we just, it's what we do. It's what we're doing. So, but for the most part, the best thing that we could tell you guys is, test things out, see what works for you, see what doesn't work for you. If it doesn't work for you, change it up. You know what I'm saying? The gems are just, they're part of the game. They're a big part of the game, but they're not all of the game. You know what I'm saying? They help shape your character a little bit better. So, and working on your secondary stats is going to increase your damage more so than the legendary gems will. The legendary gems are just extra proc abilities. The secondary gems are your actual damage, your life, your resistance, your potency, all that jazz. So work on those. You need them. Anyways, man, I'm going to upload this. I'll probably put this out right before we get the patch notes because I don't want to have any conflicting information, but we'll keep this on here for a while. Till then, guys, have a great day. I love you, bees, man. I'm going to try to do these things for you more often. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I'm out.